In this video, I'm going to create a component that gets data from AWS, and then I'll be able to display it in the component. I'm just going to print it out now, but the trip will be interesting. We have to make a component. The component's got to call a data service within Angular. The Angular data service is going to talk to my AWS API Gateway. The AWS API Gateway will talk to Lambda. It's going to get the data there. We're going to make a return trip. So we're going to do this using an HTTP GET. I thought this would be a pretty interesting exercise, not too hard, but full of fundamentals, complete path. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, I'm in my AWS console, and I want to take a look at the Lambda that's going to get my data from the database. And we made a simple Lambda in the last video. Just go ahead and click Lambda, and we called it Bigfoot Sightings No Auth, because we have no authorization and authentication. All right, so I'm going to modify this little message right here for an array with two elements, kind of make it look more like I'm pulling back something from an RDS database. And this is where we'll do the database pull in this Lambda. Let's delete this string right here, including the single speech quotes. We'll just cut that. And this is where I'm going to put my data array. So I'm going to do a square bracket. And then I'm going to do two JSON objects. I'll do an indent, curly bracket, open that up. We're going to get like an ID. We'll probably have an ID. We'll get a string 001, comma. We're going to have some sort of username, probably the email. But for the sake of testing, I'll just call this Cletus, comma, and we'll need a description, and colon, drinking on the porch, drinking on the porch, and do a little comma here, and send a date over. We'll do date. I'm just going to make a new date every time we do a pull because we don't have our data stored yet. So we'll do date. That looks good. Let me put a comma down here. We're going to add one more record. But we'll cut and paste, save some time. Control C. Control V. Oh man, I thought I had it lined up too. Let's go there. I can get rid of this last comma. Make this a 2. Make this like Theo. And not drinking on the porch, we'll say fishing by the lake. Nice. All right, we're going to deploy this. Let me see if it looks good. Looks good. Let's deploy this. Successful. Now let's go to our API Gateway. Services. API Gateway. Bigfoot Hunter No Auth. That's what I was using. We can go ahead and do a test. Let's go to stages. We need to get the URL. Open up dev. Go to get. And this is the URL that we're going to need in our application. Let's just go ahead and copy that. Copy link. That'll work. And I'm going to click on it just to see if we get data. Nice. We're getting our data coming back. Coming back as a string. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to get this URL and we're going to paste it in our application, but I'll leave it here just in case I lose it from the buffer while I make my sightings service and sightings component. I'm over here in my Angular app, my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to need a sightings component, and I'm also going to need a sightings service. We do the data calls separate from the component, just for a little more modularity for unit testing and stuff like that. So I have two command prompts open, one with ngserve running. This one down here for making components, I'm going to make a services component first, or service component first. So ng generate service sightings. All right, we got our sighting service created. Let's take a look at sightings, sighting service. There we go. And we are going to need the HTTP client in our constructor. We're also going to have to add it to our app too, in our app module TS. So we can't forget. So let's do private. I'm just going to call this HTTP and then HTTP client. And let's add it up here. We probably should have added it to our app module TS first so we can do our imports. That's fine. Do HTTP client. And I'll say from at Angular. What do we want? Angular common / HTTP. There we go. And under the constructor, I'm going to make a function or a method called retrieve all sightings. Then I'll just return my data call. I'll say this HTTP get. I'll open that up. Go ahead and add the other line because it gets kind of long. And then I'm going to paste that URL that I had from my API gateway under the staged area sightings get. Right? And then we'll just close this off with a semicolon. And that should do it. Let's add our HTTP stuff to our app module TS. All right, so in the imports, under form module, it's out a comma, and I'll do HTTP client module, and it got added up here too. Now we won't get any errors. Let's save all this, take a look at our ng build, and it's building. Cool. Now we can make our sightings component. The sightings component will get the data from the sighting service. Let's get our other command prompt, and I'll do ng generate component sightings. And now we have our sightings component. Let's take a look at it. Sightings. All right, there's nothing in it. Let me pull this out a little bit. We'll go ahead and open up the sightings component TypeScript file. All right, so our objective is just to get the data back from Lambda. So I'm not going to do a whole lot in here. I'm just going to call the data. But I'm going to need my sighting service, right? And I'm also going to need a member variable. Call that sightings array. And we'll just give it a type any for now. I'll get my constructor. And then I'll inject my sighting service right in here. So we'll say private sightings service colon sightings service. It got added up here in the imports. And we'll just do an open and close curly brackets. And then I'm going to do the public ng, oh my gosh, ng on init, open close parentheses, and we'll just make that void, curly bracket. We will call our sightings service dot retrieve all sightings, open close parentheses, and we need to do a subscribe to actually get the data to make the HTTP call. So in the subscribe, let's get a parameter and we'll call it RESP for response, thick arrow notation, open and close curly bracket. Then we'll do a this sightings array equals response. Nice. And we can just do a printout. That'll be enough for proof of concept. So let's do a console.log. And then I'm going to say sightings so we know. And this dot sightings array. All right. Now, when we go to get our sightings component, we could just type it in the URL, but we already have a header up here. Let's take a look at the header. And the header has this HTML. We already put the sightings path in here, but we don't have a route to it. So let's add that. Let's go to app routing module TS. Cool. And then right after this route, I'll do a comma, curly brackets, path, colon, sightings, comma, component, sightings component got added up here on line 8. And yeah, may as well do a can activate, right? Square bracket, route guard service. There it is, route guard service. We can make this a little smaller. That should do it. Now we should be able to bring up our sightings. Let's go ahead and save everything. Save all. I'm going to bring up my website. And we do have to log in just to get the routes. I should have done logging in and logging out last, but I didn't. Now it's not protecting our data, so the data is still open, but we're going to get to that. So let me go ahead and log in. SimTechGamer7 at proton.me. And we'll put our password in here. Log in. Let's go ahead and take a look at the inspect console. And now when we go to sightings, we should see our data come back. Ah, nice. It come back as an array. There we go. So we have our data in here. We have Cletus and Theo's data. That's pretty exciting. So I'll see you in the next video, and we'll try locking this down with our Cognito tokens.